hello, and welcome to the Supervision of Peer Workforce Conference. My name is Dasha, and I'm with Share. This session is on essential peer support services supervision training with Susan Musante and Matthew Ladner. I'm going to let Susan and Matthew introduce themselves as far as their bio, but I do want to let you know that if you have any questions or technical problems, please send me a note directly in the chat. Everyone, please mute yourself now and remain muted unless you have been called upon to speak. At the end of the presentation, we ask that you please complete a short evaluation of today's presentation. When we get closer to the end, I will give you several opportunities to click the link and complete the survey, the evaluation. Susan and Matt, you are welcome to start. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to not only present, but be a part of a peer support supervision conference. This has been a big gap in the development of peer support services, recognizing the importance of supervision. So thank you for that. My name is Susan Musante. I currently live in Alaska, but I've also worked in New York and New Mexico. My big claim to fame of more recent years is that I was the original executive director of Soteria House, which was not a peer-run program, but drew heavily on working with people with lived experience. And also I was the first full-time executive director of Choices, which is a peer-run psychosocial kind of clinical program, except it was peer run, so it wasn't as clinical as it was peer run. And Matt was a part of those two programs, so I'm glad for him to be here. But I've been involved in working with peer support for many years and have watched the development and the growth. And as I said, I think one of the big gaps has been not acknowledging the importance of supervision. So thank you for this opportunity. And I'm going to let Matt introduce himself.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, my name is Matthew Ladner. I started out within peer work about 10 years ago. It's been about a decade. I started out working with Susan as my mentor at Soteria, Alaska. And I would say those were kind of my golden years, because I was pretty heavily into my own mental health struggles and was kind of working in the peer field while working at Soteria, while still working on myself and trying to get myself stabilized and whatnot. But I've worked in many different places providing peer support, and currently I'm working in Anchorage on the ACT team. And I appreciate being a part of this, and I look forward to, making this presentation with everyone. And thank you for coming.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks for agreeing to present with me.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I just want to make note that supervision is a process, not an event, and it's I don't know, that's self-evident. It just grows in the way that peer support can grow through relationships. One of the things that I have experienced is that supervisors rarely have the luxury of just providing kind of relational, supportive, clinical type supervision. As supervisors, we get drawn between HR requirements, administrative requirements. We become the keeper of the programmatic policies and procedures. And then most descriptions, and having worked for the state, this is like the big one. Other duties as assigned, so they're covered for whatever they send your way. But so rarely do supervisors have the luxury of just providing kind of supportive problem-solving supervision. There's these other conflicting demands, basically. In addition, there's a variety of settings, such as, I've had the opportunity to work in peer-run settings, which is great, but I've also worked in medical settings. I've worked in settings that were kind of mixed. And I'm aware that there are some folks who are working perhaps in a peer-run organization, but they're subcontracting with a more community behavioral health organization. So it's like a shared team, but they're not really a part of the oversight organization. So again, each of these settings bring other conundrums to them. And Matt, before I go further, do you want to comment on anything I've said so far?
I think you're doing great. Definitely multi-settings. I believe that there is a lot of conflicts when it comes to supervision, and I think that that's our next slide that I'll touch more on.
Okay, great. Okay, so I wanted to acknowledge, before I go to this one, I wanted to acknowledge some of the people who have helped sort of develop this format that we're going to demonstrate, hopefully with all of your participation. When I first started working in the realm of peer support, I was a licensed counselor. I supported the idea of peer support, but there weren't the trainings that we have today, and there certainly were no clear guidelines around supervision. And people who are trained as counselors, such as myself, were often told not to share your personal experiences, for example. But I learned from many people, but I want to mention Michael Huber in New Mexico, who's passed a couple of years ago, but helped me learn much about what I know today. And Tom Lane also helped me learn so much from my days in New Mexico. And my good friend, Jeff Revels, who also is no longer with us. But I like to acknowledge who has come before and who has shaped this. But we didn't have a good format for supervision that was reflective of peer support values. And to that end, we developed our own way of group supervision, and we wanted to highlight the notion of mutuality and reciprocity, empathy and compassion, solidarity and companionship. This is big: equality, respect, and empowerment. Understanding that everybody brings something to the table to learn from. No judgment, the idea of being yourself, and that it's okay to be yourself. And here is a challenge when you're in a more medical setting, is a focus on strengths and potential versus disease and weakness, and a value of helpfulness and independence as opposed to stabilization and maintenance. So I've been through the growth from the stabilization and maintenance to helpfulness and independence. And Matt, got anything you want to add?
Just kind of like what we were talking about yesterday. I think that at least in my current work, I find it interesting being a peer support provider, a peer support professional, and having supervision with a licensed clinician. That's who provides me with that supervision. And I find it interesting, just the two kind of perspectives coming together, kind of like on that previous slide where it was talking about competing agendas and whatnot. As a peer support, usually, I'll have my peers' best interest in my mind when I'm discussing a certain situation with my supervisor, and sometimes my agency might have conflicting, ideas on how I should approach a situation. And that it can just be an interesting conversation between a peer support worker and a clinician who maybe hasn't had some of that lived experience of being a consumer. And so just trying to figure out how, to create that equality and respect within supervision is pretty important.
So in Alaska, we are required, if it's a Medicaid billable service, to have what they call a directing clinician oversee it. That usually is a master's level clinician who may or may not be familiar with peer support. Peer-run organizations frequently don't have that requirement because they're not billing Medicaid, but sometimes they still have to interact with people who have kind of grown up in a more medical model type situation, or they may not have thought about how to supervise in a way that really incorporates peer support values. So I'm having trouble moving my screen. Okay. So in order to address that, we kind of came up with a format which we would like to demonstrate with this group. And it seems like we have quite a few people on. So hopefully we do not create chaos, and hopefully we can work through this. But this slide shows the kind of the process or the format that we use. And that is beginning with successes, because this work is challenging, it's hard, it's difficult, it triggers feelings within us. And sometimes we forget to acknowledge and celebrate the successes. So we kind of like to start with that. And but then we do want to get into a problem solving, mutual sharing kind of a mode. And so people can bring then their challenges and or things they're concerned about, worries they have, something that may have surprised them. And this part of the meeting is very short. So a brief success. Hi, my name is so-and-so, and this week I had a success and this is it. Challenge is the same thing. And then the group, through a consensus, decides one or two of the challenges to discuss in greater detail. And a lot of times it's when someone presents a challenge, like many people have had the same challenge and they're like, yes, so it's easy to pick, we'll take that. And then sometimes there's just one person who's like, I really need to talk about this. And then the group may choose to help with that, but we all learn from it. It's not a process of helping the one person. It's a process of, we're going to help all of us learn. And then once the concern or the situation is decided upon to speak about in greater detail, the group spent some time talking about it. And then one of the things we started doing years back was, after we did the situational discussion, themes would come about. And so we then would invite guest presenters at a future meeting, or maybe a participant who has a particular knowledge base, to do a more of a didactic presentation based on the needs of the group that have, the common needs that have been coming forward. So as I said, today we were hoping to sort of do a group. And so what I'd like to ask you to do is, and we probably won't be able to get everybody on, but a few of you, if you're willing to jump in and say who you are, and just so that I can know a little bit more about you, whether you're a supervisor, whether you're in a peer-run organization, or a more community behavioral health organization, an ACT team like Matt is at this point, real briefly, and then after that, we'll have others come in and we'll do very briefly challenges. And I see already one hand raised, and I can't see who that is, but hold on. I see two hands raised and I'm not seeing names.
Looks like we got a Tiana Ross first up.
Okay, go for it. Got it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tiana Ross. I work with Painted Brain. That is a peer-run mental health agency here in Los Angeles. And I'm the program coordinator over the Cal Hope FEMA project, which is providing crisis counseling services to Californians who have been adversely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We have a team of like 17 or 18 crisis counselors that I supervise, and I'm looking forward to just learning more. We've been on this grant for about a year, and so hopefully we're looking for our grant to be extended until August. So very hopeful with that. We've been making a lot of impact here in Los Angeles County by just connecting individuals to resources and services, as well as meeting with them in a one-on-one setting or group setting to provide support.
Tiana, can you tell us one success briefly?
One success is that I would say my counselors are still motivated.
Okay.
And are still excited to do this work. Prior to stepping into this role, I had no idea what peer-to-peer was.
Okay, great. Okay, so
it's
we're
been
going to
great.
get in depth as we go on, but just real briefly, I see a number of other hands up. Do we know who's next?
We got Walida Ross.
Hi, my name is Walida Ross. I'm from Portland, Oregon. Oh, I'm frozen. Oh, there I am. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I am the supervisor of the technical support program that we have there, which is a hub, which we teach intentional peer support. We certify peers to be traditional health workers and peer support. I was just recently the supervisor of a psych hospital with peer supports, and we had a team of 12 people that were there. And so we are a peer-ran program, and we have, I believe, like 50 staff members. It's a small nonprofit place, and we are basically located in, I want to say, like 5 different social programs, clinics throughout the Portland and Clackamas County area.
How
What
about a
else did you want to
success,
do?
Walida? A success.
A success that
A success
we
story,
have
something
made
to
it.
celebrate. Yes.
We have made it through COVID, through the Zoom, and we're still pushing through. And now we're in person for training, and we still have stuff online, and our peers are coming back. So that is a success.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we got Marcus.
Hey, Marcus.
Hello everyone. My name is Marcus Bedford from Los Angeles, and I run and operate a sober living house. It might be the only peer support sober living house in Los Angeles that I know of. So I'm here, just trying to get some more information because it is, right now, I pretty much do it as a voluntary service to the house. I took my training over at Share, so I learned a lot and still looking to learn more. Thank you.
Hey, Marcus, what's the success you've had this week, bud?
Success. I actually did an interview to take someone in who's coming out of treatment.
Excellent. Perfect. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Marcus.
Next up, we got Z Madero.
Hello, my name is Sobeida Madero, and I work for the department. I'm the Director of Peer Services for the Department of Mental Health here in Massachusetts. My position is a new position that they developed, and the department consists of 5 peers and myself. One thing that worked, a good thing that happened this week is that I started my own agency. The name is Recovery Multi Services, and we will be providing linkages for recovery services for people here in Massachusetts.
Excellent. Very nice. Congratulations and thanks for sharing. Next up, we got Carrie Carner.
Yeah, hi, my name is Carrie. and I work for Colorado Mental Wellness Network here in Denver, Colorado, but we represent the state. We are a completely peer-run organization from our executive director all the way across the board. Been doing this work as either a supervisor or direct provider for about 13 years. Here's the easy success. We have hit or exceeded all of our grant numbers.
Nice.
And here's the more important success. When I get to hear from the people we're privileged to serve, how much they appreciate the peer support our peer support folks provide. When I hear from them how much they value our services, that to me is the real success.
Absolutely.
The numbers are necessary, but the people are what's really important.
For sure. Thanks for sharing, Carrie. All right, we got an iPhone user who's got their hand up. If they want to go ahead.
Hello, I am Stephen. Igmonimale is my indigenous name. I work at Sally's Place, a peer run agency that is under La Familia. Sally's Place is a mental health respite place, is in Hayward, California. It's been a wonderful experience being a peer support specialist and working with a wonderful team, and overall supervisor is Christina Murphy. She's been a wonderful support, and I have more than three other people who work with: Seth, Maria, Saint, Vanessa, Harris, Dwight, and everyone who comes in as volunteers and per diem staff. It's been a wonderful experience. We've started since 2019. We've provided lots of service all around Alameda County. I think for now we're the only peer-run mental health respite agency around Alameda County, and we've been doing a wonderful job. And it's wonderful learning more about supervision because it's something I hope to grow into. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And next up, we'll have Susan Musante share her successes and maybe a challenge this week.
So a success that I have had is in supervision would be, so I'm not really working for an organization any longer. I work for myself, but periodically I get phone calls from people, and they'll say, I'm really challenged with this, and can I run it by you? And to me, that's very, it's great to think that that clearly whatever we had done in supervision previously was helpful. Last week I did have someone call me, and I really didn't have an answer because usually there isn't really an answer, but we were able to talk about it. So, and I think the person found their answer, and that's to me the key to mutual supervision. And are we moving to challenges now, Mr. Ladner? I think we're moving to challenges. Maybe you could start us off with that. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah.
When we do the challenge part of this, we're going to do it kind of like we did with the successes. Is keep it brief. If you haven't already introduced yourself, introduce yourself briefly, but then a brief 1 or 2 lines about your challenge, and then as a group, we're going to try and pick one to get it to dig more deeply into. So go for it, Matt.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just kind of reintroduce myself, and I'll provide a success as well, just real quick. But my name is Matthew Ladner. I'm a peer support specialist. I've been working in the peer field for almost a decade now. I love it. It's my life calling. I currently work on the ACT team in Anchorage. ACT stands for Assertive Community Treatment. And one of my successes is we found a client that had been missing for weeks. And he's got infections in both of his legs, and he's just kind of wandering the streets of Anchorage, and we found him. So we're getting him the help that he needs. A challenge that I've had within supervision is that lately I have one client, I mean, many clients on the ACT team that are struggling with delusions, but one client in general that he really can hold himself together. But the more you engage with him, the more he will discuss and open up about his delusions. And I'm having difficulties because I am the only peer support on my team. And there's a lot of, clinical staff, case managers and whatnot, that they feel that me like interacting and engaging in dialogue with this individual is kind of indulging in his delusions rather than just, from my understanding, kind of validating them and his experiences. And so within my team, that's a challenge that I'm currently having.
Thanks, Matt. And I think that's for folks who are working in more conventional type of services. I would say that becomes a challenge. Language is different. The framework in which we see people is different. And that becomes, it really becomes like competing or conflicting values, and that's hard to be with. So thanks for sharing that. Do we have, again, briefly, and then we're gonna, hopefully with this large group, not have total chaos and pick one or two that we can talk about in more depth. Is there anybody with challenges? A challenge?
Looks like we got Catalina. First one to raise her hand.
Hello, my name is Catalina Zambrano. I'm the Advocacy Director for the Central California LGBTQIA+ Two-Spirit Collaborative out of Modesto. We've been doing really well with our peer support within our own group, but one of the challenges that I face, and I think that you just kind of hit on right now, was that within our own clinicians within our behavioral health system, they don't really see our peer support as helping, or they don't really think that it's a serious thing anyway. And it kind of gets to a point when we are kind of either offering our services, especially within, we're the only LGBTQ kind of system in our area that provides peer support. But what we see is a lot of the clinicians or a lot of the therapists, they don't really want to interact with us. They don't want to talk to us. They don't want to have that conversation with us about, what we can offer to, multiple clients. So what's a good way to manage through that, or to I guess just kind of work through that?
Thank you. Tiana, I see you have a challenge in the chat. Would you like to tell us?
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I was just saying, finding creative ways to keep my staff engaged and involved in their work, as well as trying to learn more efficient and effective ways to provide supervision.
Thank you.
It's like we got Robin, who's got her hand raised.
Hi, so my name is Robin Ruff-Wagner. I am a certified peer support worker and the program director of the Santa Fe Clubhouse in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We're a peer-run psychosocial rehabilitation program. And my biggest challenge right now is that we've had a few things come up where clients have talked about, like, so-and-so made a discriminatory comment, or this microaggression has come up, and, we're an all-white team. There's 4 of us, and my challenge is just managing that and making sure that we are all, equipped to deal with those things as they come up and keep the clubhouse a safe place for everyone.
Excellent.
Thank you. As an aside, I have been to your clubhouse many moons ago.
Oh, yay!
And looks like we got Walida up again if she'd like to share a challenge.
Thank you, Robin, for sharing that, because I'm total opposite of you. So I am the only person of color that is on my team. And so it's in reverse. And so we have peers that are coming into our place of business that are African American. The team is none of color. And there's like a lot of microaggression that's going on. And so supporting the staff members so that they have a voice and being heard. So like they're feeling like they're not in a hostile work environment, but supporting also the peers so they're not feeling like they are also in a hostile environment. And also to where that a staff member will be able to have a voice and say, okay, this person is not complying. I hate word complying because that's so clinical. Is not being able to maintain the rules of what is set in place to be able to come to the program. And if a peer as a staff member has the voice to be able to say this person is not in compliance of doing this and this, that it's going to be a precedent to where they're going to be able to exile a lot more peers that aren't, I'm trying to say it so it doesn't sound incorrect, where they don't culturally understand different cultures. And also with training, trying to have them understand, but it's more or less a fear-based kind of sort of situation that's happening. So I'm really having a conflict on that, on supporting the staff and supporting the peers that are coming to where they won't feel like they're being exiled because of their culture.
Thank you for sharing, Walida.
I
So look-
I see a challenge in the chat. Dr. Lincoln, did you want to share that with us, or shall I read it?
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. Yeah, excuse the mess. Yeah, I'm really happy to be part of the conference. Thank you so much for putting it together. I've worked with peers since 1996, both on the East Coast and here on the West Coast. So they're a really important piece of mental health service delivery. We can't do half of the things without peers. So I just wanted to say that. But one of the things I find sometimes, not always, but there's seems to be this sense of if it worked for me, it has to work for you. And often I've seen that with sometimes newer peers that are on board, you know, and it complicates things because quote unquote clinicians feel like they also have the right answer. So there's kind of a push and pull with our own lived experiences and what we can share with others. And also that clinical piece that, you know, this is the best or, you know, most evidence-based, I hate that word, way we can do things. So yeah, I find that to be a challenge sometimes, especially with peers just coming on board. And I have to kind of talk with them about boundaries around that area. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. Do we have other concerns, situations somebody would like to present? Okay, so I'm going to try and recap, but it's hard to listen and take notes. And so, Matt, I'm hoping you have a better memory than I do. So we had Matthew's original one of working with someone from a place of, what he didn't use the term, but I know he thinks about it, being with someone rather than doing to someone, and being perceived on a team. And I think this is something several of you have talked about, is being either the only one on the team of color, the only one who's a peer, the only one who's, you know, whatever. And in a sense, marginalized, and or also the people we work with can feel marginalized. And but his specific one is how as the only person on this team who views the world with maybe a different set of values, maybe shared, but some different values, how do you anyway, how do you mitigate that? Then okay, so I also brought up, several people brought up the issue of being, again, the only person of color, for example, and having to deal with that situation and support their peers, and they're also the people that they work with. I'm missing some here. The recent one peers, particularly people who are new to the field, maybe thinking this worked for me, so it should work for you. That goes to a place of should, I think. But you know, counselors and therapists and doctors have the same thought. I know how to deal with this. This is how we deal with it. So that's a struggle. And how to engage. Earlier on, we had someone talk about how to engage staff and keep them involved in the work, which I think we all know is that it's challenging. I see someone here in the chat said, yep, it's challenging to get folks to embrace multiple pathways to recovery. It's not one size fits all. So what did I miss?
I think you got most of them. Kind of, you know, what I'm seeing is how also do we explain to others the importance of peer support and what the work entails and how it is important to helping our peers recover and their ability to recover. So this is where, as a group, right, we would decide which challenge we would like to focus on.
Mm-hmm. So I rarely do we take a vote. It's more like a consensus. Like, did any one of these speak more to you also? So just, you know, chime in when you can or raise your hand. That'll probably help us have less chaos. Although I'm good with chaos. And I see a hand raised.
Yep. It's like we got Libby with her hand up.
Libby.
I resonated a lot with what Lolita was, can you hear me? I resonated with what Lolita was saying regarding how the staff and the people being served are different. And she's mentioned a cultural difference, but I think it can take a lot of different forms. For example, staff who have lived experience of psychiatric disabilities versus substance use, sometimes it's harder to relate to someone who's just different than you. I think, you know, approaching things with cultural humility is a learning process, and it's something we have to continually work at. But I guess to me, one of the fundamental issues is sort of this weighing of the needs of the staff to feel safe and competent, the needs of the people being served to feel safe and like they're understood, and how that can almost be in competition sometimes. Like, do they have
okay, we're gonna talk about this in greater detail, but I want to hear from other folks. Do you have a particular one of these situations or challenges? Thanks so much, Libby. That was really articulate and well said and framed for the problem. Were there any other specific situations that others felt were something you'd want to discuss in further detail? I'm not seeing anybody else. Would anybody be opposed to taking on this particular situation for starters?
Susan, I couldn't find the right button, so I'm just interrupting.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm Gene Larkin. I worked at the original Soteria program and a couple others. One of the things I liked was, I can't remember who brought it up, but the conflict with the professional industry, essentially, where he was talking with someone about their delusions, and that was kind of committing the mortal sin of no collusion with delusion kind of crap. And that kind of thing that points out differences. And I think that may be a general topic overall, is how do you deal with differences, and how those differences are threatening to the other side, essentially, that is choosing a side. So part of it is just the threat of being different. And that's
Thank you, Gene. It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a burning desire to discuss one of these particular situations, challenges, concerns? So, oh,
Yes,
I see.
it's me,
Andreas.
Stephen.
Who's
I'd
that?
like to go talking about psychiatrists and clinicians. One of the things clinicians and psychiatrists come from is that fix the person mentality. I think the mentality they greet these issues with comes from that background of trying to fix the problem without the person. They're more like over the person's problem or over the person's challenges, and think they have like the solution. They're kind of diminutive or condescending to the client, in the sense that they're like, I know what you're suffering, I want to fix you, or like being client or patient oriented.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I see a couple of people are interested in talking about the not fixing the like Gene's no collusion with delusion. And then I see one more hand up, and that Anna, is that you?
Yes, thank you so much. If I may, on this topic, I think it's, working with folks who we call them folks with special messages. And I came to this term very recently. I've always been puzzled. I'm a peer support specialist, and I've always been puzzled on, so how do you work with someone who is seeing or hearing something that others don't? And I attended the workshop by the person who is actually working, has a license today, is a provider, and the person with lived experience and the person with special messages. And he did that workshop with a family member who also has a son like that. It was the best experience I've ever had. They were able to help people without stigmatizing, without using the language of delusion. They were able to go with them and meet them where they were at, and then bring them back to this world and help them connect. I can't do the whole workshop in 3 seconds, but I'm saying if you want more information, I'll put my email in the chat. I think those are the most powerful things that we can do to affect change and work better. Thank you.
Thank you. I thank you. So I think we've got several people who would like to sort of pick up on this challenge of how to work with folks who may use different language than we do. You said special messages. Other people use the word delusion. And delusion is a medical model term, whereas special medicine messages is not. So let's take that on. If we still have time, I think we can go to the other challenge. But if this was a real supervision group, if you remember, I started with supervision is not an event, but it is a process. So if we didn't get to somebody's particular concern or situation that day, we can always come back to the next session, or sometimes we would bring in at the end or at the next session someone who maybe has expertise in that particular area that we could call upon to share their wisdom with us. So let's start with that. It seems like people have a lot of thoughts about the problem, the conflict around this, the concern. What are some of your thoughts about how to be in this situation, to not try and fix the person, to understand and use different language, perhaps? I'm not sure. Do we have some thoughts about how to get better at this as people who are supporting folks and being on a team that maybe has different values than you, and a world for sure that has different values?
One of the things that, oh, I'm sorry. Is it okay if I just unmute, or do I need to raise my hand? I'm sorry.
I'm fine. Go for it.
Oh, okay. One of the things that I've done with my team is kind of get to know everyone one-on-one, to know how they communicate. And so within a group setting, I'm able to kind of use language that everyone can understand and relate to, because we have such a real diverse team. We have a little bit of everybody on our team. And I think that's one of the beautiful things of working with the organization that I'm working with, that it's very, very diverse.
Thank you. So really dealing with the folks in a individualized. So other thoughts about this?
It's like Carrie's got his hand raised.
Yeah, I'll jump in. This is actually a toughie. And especially if you're a peer support professional on a clinical team that hasn't been, I'm going to say, skillfully prepped to know the differences in the roles of the different people on the team. You know, I had put, my little thing in the chat about, we're in a really unique role. We have our feet in two different worlds. I have to work with clinicians and therapists and case managers. I'm part of that team, but I never want to lose my peerness. So is there going to be enough prep work done so that the team realizes I'm going to be talking about things from a different perspective, from the peer perspective? I'm going to use different language than they do. I may reframe things differently. I may ask questions that are uncomfortable. And then, am I still going to be respected as a professional colleague, or am I going to be, oh yeah, it's that guy again? But I think over time, as we show our value, by keeping the peer perspective, that the team will hopefully buy in. I'm going to meet somebody where they're at. That may not be a clinician's role. They're leaning more toward goals and change and things like that. My job as a peer support professional is to provide encouragement, hope, nurturing, and meeting people where they're at. And I don't know how many people here like pizza. We're one additional ingredient on the pizza that makes it taste better. And we've got to get the team to go, you're right. You're not supposed to talk like us. You don't always act like us. You're going to challenge us.
Right. Okay, I see Anna has a hand. Thank you. I like the pizza analogy. I happen to like pizza, so I'm good with that, as long as it's not pepperoni. I see Anna has her hand up, and then Matt, I'm not sure what time you have to leave.
So I think it's an amazing discussion, and I was lucky to work for a peer-run office within the county behavioral health system. The most amazing experience of my life. And then for many, many years. And then I went to work for another program that was not peer-run within the same county. And I made a very big mistake as I learned later, because I tried to challenge the wording, the language that was used, because we spent like 9 years in Contra Costa County, you know, changing, I thought, you know, everyone got it. Like, you know, we were making presentations, we're, you know, the whole shebang. Oh my God. I said, please don't call them. All I said, yeah, was please don't call them low functioning. You know, we'll function at different levels at different times. Wow. I mean, it was a something storm. I don't talk like that in front of my clients. This is, you know, so it was a very big awakening to me, I think, and a reminder that Pat Corrigan, you know, his teachings about stigma, the big, like when we are in those environments, I realized contact. Like I had to close my mouth and just show up every day as me, as a peer provider, and have conversations about our values and get really on a personal level, because I realized all that talk on, you know, sort of in big letters on posters, it doesn't sink in until it's one-on-one. And that is until we change hearts. And that is the biggest issue. And it really is still an issue today. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And I'm not sure, did we lose Mr. Ladner? I know we had to, although you're there. Do you have any words of wisdom before we go further? Because I think you have to dip out. Am I right?
Yeah, unfortunately I do. I think just, you know, regardless of whatever situation we're in, putting the best interests of our clients and advocating for them within our team is what we have to do. And I think that part of this role is trying to, you know, create our handling mental health as a society. And I think a part of that sometimes is having to advocate for your client and allow the team.
You're kind of freezing up. Sorry, it looks like you've sort of froze up there. We missed some of that. So I want to add that a lot of, so one of the things I always try to do, I'm not saying that everybody should do this, is that I liked what Anna was saying, in the sense that we think we've helped people understand that language is important, but they're still entrenched, or everybody's entrenched in their own language. So you know, working at Soteria House, we had our own language. And frankly, most of the world does not know what being with means. You know, even people with lived experience don't know what that really means. You know, they think you're sitting there and watching people or something like that. And, you know, one of these days, Matt was talking to me, we really need to do a workshop on being with, and so we should probably talk about Gene with that, since he was at the original, he knows the original Soteria House. And, but other people don't know what that means. And just like not everybody knows what, you know, a delusion is. And so a lot of times when I'm talking about things, I want everybody to get a common language. So sometimes I'll say things like what some of you or most of you will call psychosis, but other people call an altered state or special messages. And then I just start to and I don't have all the language. I've learned the language from other people, and it's changed over the years, but I try and define it as much as I can so that we all kind of know what we're talking about, and then hopefully we'll model kinder language. I myself have been known to use not kind language, and but I can relate to the low functioning thing. That used to drive me to mad. Like I'd be sitting in a team meeting and somebody would be talking about, oh, they're low functioning. And I would be like, really? Like, this is how you're describing a human being. So I can relate to that. We're getting close to the end here. And really what I was hearing in summary, I'll just kind of do this, is first of all, thank you all for participating in this. our point here was to try and demonstrate a way of having a mutual sharing kind of supervision where we're all learning. I myself always learn in these situations. And some of the ideas are to really treat people as individuals, to pay attention to stigma. And now I've lost my notes on this, but I appreciated the ideas, and I see a hand up. Is that Eugene? Got a hand up? Eugene?
Yes, yeah, I am. If you need to close, go ahead. I was just going to address that when you're working with someone, whether it's delusional or whatever, those terms are absolute nonsense. They mean nothing when you're talking with someone. And so if you're talking with someone that is delusional, learn from that delusion. You're still validating them by listening to them. So it's irrelevant whether or not you accept that as real. What you're accepting as real is the human being that you're talking to. And I think that is where the value is. That is where they begin to feel worthwhile again, because you are accepting them right where they are, not trying to make them be somewhere else. And it's almost easier with a client because they are so vulnerable that they'll accept that. It's harder with professionals who are so arrogant that they feel like they already know and that you are the fool. And you can't tell them, no, they're the fool. You have to use the exact same approach with a professional. You have to listen. And what they're telling you is, in your terms, their delusion. But you need to listen to their delusion, have them explain it so you can learn about them. So you can move again away from this constant threatening difference, UI, being threatening. Everybody needs to validate everybody else eventually.
I do believe that some of us suffer from the delusion that we are right most of the time.
I'm the most arrogant son of a bitch you'll ever meet.
But we only have about 3 or 4 minutes left.
That's okay.
No,
I'm done. That's okay.
No, I'm glad to hear from you. So everybody really, but I wondered if there's any questions or last minute comments that folks want to make. Questions for sure. And we only have 3 minutes left, I think.
I always tell people that, when staff or peers meet with somebody, be mutual, walk together in this process. When someone comes in, walk with them. Don't tell them to go in front of you or don't tell them to go behind you. Walk the process through together.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I'd just like to say that we are breaking for lunch. So if people want to stay on and discuss some of these matters, they can. I don't know if our speakers, Susan and Matthew, can do that. They may not have enough time, but certainly we can leave this forum open if people want to just converse with one another and further explore some of these interesting questions that have come up here. It's really could be a whole conference in itself, I think.
So I want to say, that Matthew, I believe, does have to leave, duty calls, but I can stay on for a little bit more. And so if anybody has any questions or comments, but I also believe in taking lunch breaks for those of you who are going to come right back in. So make sure you get a little break for yourself.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Any other burning, and I apologize, I'm a little sniffly, I've got a cold. Any other burning questions or comments? I did have one more thing I forgot to say, and that is I didn't give you guys my email address, and I will put it in the chat if I can do this quickly. And also there I am now I'm going to do a shameless plug. I didn't ask permission. I'm just going to do it. I will be doing a 6-hour course on peer support supervision. If you email me, if you're interested, it's 6 hours. We just got approval for anybody who's social worker or counselors. We got approval for continuing education hours, but it's really open to anybody. And we usually have a lot of participation from people who work for peer-run organizations, as well as folks who work for other types of organizations. And I'm putting my email in the chat. Feel free to contact me with questions, or if you're interested in our upcoming training. And I am Susan Musante at Hotmail, just my name at hotmail.com. It's as simple as that. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay. Yes, feel free to get in touch. I have some comments. I'm glad to do that. I'm just looking to see if there's any other comments we missed. Someone wrote, I also roll with clients' delusions. And if I was saying, I would say I also roll with what many people call delusions. And you can get a lot of clinical info. I think you can, I would like to present you with the words of a colleague of mine, who, I'm so old now, I can't remember anything anymore, who used to say, I can't remember his name, this is terrible. Anyway, who used to say, I think it's because I have a cold in my head. He used to say, do not lose your delusions, for those are your dreams. And that is true. It's just that people have a way of presenting them that we maybe don't always see. So that's all I'll say. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, then I turn it over to the share folks.